G'day, this is Johnny. I'm doing a video for you today about the Aeromax 4000. The reason I'm doing the video is because I looked online. I wanted to buy this particular unit. It's a HVLP paint system, which means it is high volume and low pressure. So the paint itself is not under much pressure, it just kind of gets sucked out of the can. What this really is like a giant vacuum cleaner in reverse. It has a turbine on the inside, and a turbine kind of is like a fan that's inverted in on itself, and when it spins it makes kind of like a cyclone, and then so it blasts the air through this hose and then into the paint sprayer. Alright, so I've already filled this can up with paint. It's got white paint. I've already watered it down a little. Maybe added 10 or 20% paint, water to the paint, so it comes out thinner, and that's okay too, because the Aeromax 4000 is a machine that heats the air. It doesn't just blow cold air through the system, it warms the air. I won't say it's hot air like a hair dryer, but it warms the air so that when the paint gets sprayed onto the wall, it dries almost immediately. So it dries within a couple of minutes. That also means that you can respray the wall by the time you finish painting one side or one wall. You can go back to the first wall and respray it. You don't have to wait all day to do something like that anymore. Randy, you can leave whenever you want. Good. Alright, the only reviews I saw for this machine were in French, and maybe I thought the machine was made in France, but I actually think that it might be made in Germany. Let's have a look. I was wrong. Yep, it's made in France by the Eiffel group, Gustav Eiffel. That's kind of cool. The thing is, it has a solid metal construction. I'm quite happy with that. It's just basically a box. Very solid. And then you get this 3-meter hose that blows out the warm air. And that just clips in the front. So the machine is basically a reverse vacuum cleaner, and I'm going to test it out for you because I need to paint this room. We've spent the last day preparing it, doing the edges, sort of just getting it all ready. So by the time that we're ready to spray, it should be easy enough. I've never used one of these particular types of sprayers before. The hole in the back of the spray gun is quite large, or much larger than what is normal, what you would expect. But the system is all steel, and you expect probably to get a good result from something like this. So, as I said, I've already filled, it feels like about 1 kilo of paint in here. Maybe that's about 1 litre. You can change the way that these tips work when you unscrew the tip. There's a ring here. You unscrew it, and then the sprayer, the nozzle comes off. This activates the paint that's going to come through the container. and the air just blows straight through the system, and the air blows non-stop. the air is always blowing through it even when there's no paint coming out. So when you press the trigger, you're releasing the valve so that paint will be sucked through the system, and then when you let go of the trigger, air is still blowing through the system, but there's no more paint coming out with it. I'm setting it in this particular fashion, and if you can see, if you turn it sideways, I think it's going to spray vertically. I need it to spray horizontally because all of these walls have horizontal panels, and that way we won't see any mistakes. Alright, so it has to be horizontal. The kit comes with the ability to rotate these nozzles so that you get a horizontal fan or you get a vertical fan. Otherwise, it does also come with an extra tip so you can spray round circles, and I guess they would be good for corners and things like that, but I won't be using any round circles. I'll just be using this, which will spray a horizontal fan shape, and hopefully with any luck there won't be a lot of overspray. If there is, I've come prepared. How much are these suits?
€4.
€4. Alright. They look like a lot of fun. I hope you can recycle them, because we have a few rooms to paint. Alright. It's like Walter White. Also invested in one of these spray masks. It's especially for painting, and with any luck it'll do a very good job. Alright, I'm not sure how to get a good shot of this, but I'll try. I'll try to shoot it from a distance. Maybe that's the way to go. We'll see how that looks, and I'll just get the system ready. Once I put on the gas mask and once I turn on the machine, you won't hear anything. There's no point me talking anymore because it'll be quite loud. I want you to hear the volume of the machine though, because I think you'll get a pretty good idea of how loud this thing is. It also changes tone when you put each hose on. So listen to this and you be the judge if this machine is too loud for your workplace. looks like the paint's too thick. It doesn't really want to get sucked out of here at this point. So I have to find a way to mix that better. Something with like a metal stick that I can put on a drill so I can mix the paint properly. I think it's just too thick. And that's no way to do it. Yep. I have to water down the paint a little. And I'll show you how to use the special tool. Still looks kind of thick. You can feel it's getting thinner. It doesn't have the same resistance. Still pretty thick though. It's kind of like honey. I mean, we could try it at this consistency. And maybe, I mean, it's actually quite much faster. I'll give it one more mix, just to know that I've mixed it as well as I can. I'm just testing it. That's why I'm not bothering to put on the mask right now. This is the Aeromax 4000 take 2. I'm sure it's because the paint was too thick. We'll find out in a second. I'll let the machine be on for a moment, just to warm up. So we tried to thin out the paint again. We added at least about another litre or 2 litres of water to it. I don't know if we need to add more, but the paint that we did put on was quite thin. I opened the aperture up as much as possible, and then it actually fell off while I was trying to use it. And then so in the middle of painting I had to try and squeeze this thing back on. It took a little while because there's a spring in there. And I'm going to try one more time to spray this. I don't really want to water the paint down much more. I mean, I guess I can, but I don't know how much waterier it needs to be before it works properly. You know, it should still be paint. But I'll try it. See, that sputtery thing usually is when the paint is too thick. So it could be a matter of the paint still being too thick, but I'm not very happy with it so far. I'm not getting any good results, but I'll just try it again as is, and then I guess we can water it down a little more, and then if it doesn't work after that, it's going to be a real pain in the ass. So you're saying don't water it down? Alright, it seems to still be quite sputtery, and you can see kind of globs of paint kind of flying out. That could be that the paint in here still needs to be thinned, and if that is the case, I think from this point we'll just thin it from inside each container rather than trying to thin out the entire 10 litres of paint, because we might ruin the whole amount. Whoa. It's not winning so far, but it could just be how thick the paint is. So we're going to try and thin out the paint inside this and try it again with thinner paint yet. I was starting this is take number 4. I was starting to get depressed, and I was about to say some bad things about the company Aeromax 4000 HVLP system. But it turns out that actually they have 3 different size nozzles here. The nozzle that I started off with was the smallest one, which was probably for varnish or stain or something like that. Some very light, viscous or very thin liquid. This time I put the fattest one on, and it doesn't have a needle point anymore. It has kind of like a larger circular edge. I'm not sure if you can see it okay. But anyway, when I depress it now, there's a bubble. When I depress it now, you can see a bigger hole. And because of the bigger hole, I'm sure it's going to let a lot more paint through. And this time I'm going to see so much paint come through that I hope we didn't thin out the original paint too much. But on a positive note, you can see the original paint is almost dry. There's a little strip there, some in the corner, still wet. So I don't really want to paint over the wet stuff right now. But yeah, you can see it's going to dry all right. Well, let's try this again. I'm going to fully gear up this time, because I'm confident that with the third biggest, the biggest one, it's going to allow the most paint through. So we're not going to get these silly results. We're going to get serious results. All right, try again.
Yeah.
It still doesn't seem to be working properly. I'm not sure if it's the... See, the paint looks quite thin, but it doesn't spray. It really comes out thick, like globs. I'm not sure if we have to thin it out more. I mean, of course we can try that. I think we just completed or emptied this container. You can sort of see how much we painted, but look how terrible it is. It didn't even really come out as paint. It came out as, it didn't come out as a spray. It came out as solid paint. Whew, that looks terrible. That is terrible. Yeah, I'll try to thin it out and see if we can yeah, maybe try to get a spray out of it instead of this thick globular stuff going on. Alright, I'll try to make some thinner paint in here, and I'll try it again. I'll finish the room anyway, but it doesn't look like it's working. So yeah, maybe it'll take a little bit of messing around to get it right. And even trying to mess around with the trigger and find out what the right depth or whatever this is supposed to be at. But it's the biggest hole now, so it's releasing the most paint, but it's still releasing the paint as if it's yeah, solid. Take 5. Alright, so I did have the biggest hole, and this time I've switched so that it's the medium one, not the pinhole one, not the big hole one, but the medium size one. And I'm really hoping to get some better results this time around. I'm going to also have to change the direction, the nozzle goes, because at the moment it's vertical. It's quite simple. You just pull out this nozzle, turn it, fits in snugly somewhere. Okay, I've got gloves on. Yeah, that's it. Just put the ring back on and Bob's your uncle. I'm hoping this time around the paint's going to spray properly because we're using the medium-sized hole. And let's find out if that works or not. All right. That's how I feel about it. I mean, how much thinner can the paint get? That's about as thin as a coat of white paint anyone could put on anything. And that, Jesus. It looks like a baby threw up milk on it. So all I can do is really go over it like a few times so that it's really, really white in the end. I have to wait for this to dry. You can feel the warm air in the hose, so it's definitely spraying warm air. I don't know, maybe I think we could try to water down the mix a little so it doesn't spatter so much. But I have a pretty strong feeling that this machine is going to go back. So thankfully we kept all of the receipts and everything. But I mean, we tried a few different things. We tried 3 different nozzles. We tried watering down the paint. There's not much more to it really. But of course I'm going to have to try to finish this room regardless. But I mean really you can see the detail here. That's when we use the really big nozzle. In the corner is where we started with a really small nozzle, and the funny thing is that gave the best spray. But the smallest nozzle, even though it gave the best spray, gave almost nothing out. So I might try the small nozzle again. But it doesn't really look like that was the problem. I don't know if the paint is the problem. But the machine doesn't really seem to be spraying spray. It seems to be spraying pieces. And I can't imagine it being much thinner. I mean, have a look at it. It really is like spraying milk on the wall. I mean, how much thinner could you do a coat? I hope you can see that, alright? Yeah, it's really weird. So, you know, because of necessity, this room has to get finished no matter what. The whole thing has to get painted. I would hate to have to crack out the roller and bucket. I would hate to have to do that, especially in the roof, because there's lots of little nooks and crannies, and that's the whole point of using air, is that you don't have to get in the nooks and crannies because the air pushes the paint in. It looks like I think if we thin the two, we'll get an alright paint. But it will never be a proper spray.
When you spray it, and I see it from the side, you see that what comes out is like spits.
Yeah.
What he said in the video to avoid spits, la la la.
Mm-hmm.
So we can have a break if you want and go online and find out what to do when the paint spits.
Because usually it's because the paint's too thick.
If it's too thick, if it's too hot, if it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we can do that if you want. This is on
yeah, it's a bit much. Starting to get better here though. This is empty. Yeah, alright, so I can talk about the Aeromax 4000 HVLP paint sprayer. It's really, I think, about getting the consistency of the paint right. There's a viscosity meter, a Ford cup, as it's called, and you measure how long it takes for the paint to empty from the Ford cup. And that has helped quite a lot. I don't know if you can really see a big difference, but sure, there's a big difference. The paint seems to be going on like paint now. It's still not really a mist like we kind of were hoping for. And in the end, we'll probably still get a different paint gun. But we'll finish this room with the paint gun that we have. And we'll just try to hone the viscosity until we get it right. At the moment, I think we're doing all right. I'm using the biggest hole, and the viscosity is 25 to 35 that we're working with, which means it takes 25 to 35 seconds for the liquid to empty from the Ford cup, and then you know how thick the paint is. So viscosity is counted in seconds, and so we're looking for something between 20 and 30 seconds viscosity. I think if we were really serious, we would be able to get it down to the second, but we don't know what the second would be. If it would be 20 seconds would better, or 30 would be better. I think 40 seconds is too long, even. It seems to sputter a bit when it's 40 seconds. But it does paint well. I mean, it goes on well. Some of it, when we first started trying it, I think it went on so well that it ran a bit. But because the whole wall is running, we're just going to leave it the way it is. We'll let it dry. When it dries, we just paint it again. And then so we're going to do a fair bit of painting. There's a lot of experimentation, and that's kind of something I wasn't expecting from the product, that I'd have to keep messing around with it. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's nighttime now and we're still doing this, and I really thought the whole thing would be over in about an hour, and it just goes to show how naive I was. And also, this wall was green, so the green wall's going to need maybe 3 or 4 coats to make sure it looks really, really white, Arctic white. And we also changed the kind of paint we're using. We're using a master white paint now, which is a more expensive paint, maybe 40 euros for 10 litres. And the paint we bought just now, what was that, like 20 euros for 10 litres? Yeah, so maybe this paint is even twice as good as the original paint we started with. I think trying to cut costs with paint can sometimes really bite you on the ass, because especially with the house paint, that when it's very thin, you end up putting more coats on anyway, so you use just as much physical paint, and you end up just buying more gallons of paint to use. How's it looking for the viscosity? I have my wife measuring viscosity so that we can try and keep a consistent spray. Get out of here, cat. Get out of here. Get out of here. All right.
Maybe.
How's it looking?
I measured it again. It was too thick. You have to wash out this sometimes too, otherwise.
Yeah, because that gets, the hole gets smaller.